Welcome everybody, and thanks for joining us on Talks on Tuesdays. And First, I'll get all the housekeeping stuff out of the way. And uh, a big welcome to everybody who's here live with us. Thanks for joining us. And for those of you who are watching on YouTube, be sure to like us, leave comments, subscribe. And if you want to join us live, send an email to talksontuesdays333@gmail.com and we'll send you a link. Today we have a special guest, Zach Ancel, and I met Zach at a Death Cafe, so I'll just give a little quick blurb about what that is. Death Cafe is a group that is an international group that was started in London, I think, someplace in England years ago. Oh, here's Louis Therese. And people get together on a meet and like drink tea and have cake, and they talk about death. And there's no other agenda besides just talk about death and whatever that means to you. So I met Zach at one of the Death Cafe meetings, and I just was intrigued by his story and what he does. And so I wanted to bring him on. Hi, Larry Trace, and have him share with us. And I thought this would be a good place for him to share for two reasons. One is because we talk about a lot of stuff that's spiritual, metaphysical, and really what could be more spiritual or metaphysical than death, right? And also I thought that this would be a nice way to give him some exposure for his gig. So without further ado, I will introduce Zach and let you take it away and share your story with us. Thanks.
Thank you. I feel like I need you to do like the housekeeping for the podcast. Get everybody to like, subscribe, do all that stuff. I'm not very good at doing that on my own. But yeah, thanks for having me. Um, so yeah, the essentially what I've been doing, it's a project called When We Die Talks. And it started about 2 years ago. I think, Barbara, you even questioned me when I said, I was having my midlife crisis. Um, but I was, starting to do the math a little bit, and I was like, all right, I'm about halfway to, the average lifespan. And death had always been something that freaked me out and scared me, and something that I kind of shied away from. Um, and so, I started having some thoughts again and kind of some panic attacks around it. And I was like, well, I can either kind of run away from it again or I can try to deal with it. Um, and so it took about, I think, 6 months before I kind of came up with the initial project, which was just this kind of voicemail setup. So I set up a voicemail that people could call and share what they thought happens when we die. And then I'd take those and kind of create videos. My background, I'm a photographer, so kind of using my photography background to create kind of videos in unison with the voicemails and sharing them. But then I kind of realized in that I was getting all this great feedback, or not necessarily feedback, but great stories and ideas, but I still wasn't really being able to work through my own issues. Um, so that's kind of when I formed the podcast, and so that I could interview people like Barbara. And so that started up in October. And so it's been going for, I guess, 4 months now. There's about 10 episodes up. The newest one comes out tomorrow. And it's just been fun, interviewing various different people. I interviewed one of my friends who's a Buddhist. Um, I interviewed a guy recently who has ALS, and in his words, will die in the next year. Um, I've interviewed people, who have lost loved ones. And so it's just been really interesting to dive into death a little bit because it's still something that freaks me out quite a bit. I am starting to lean more in towards the spiritual and that type of stuff, but for a long time, uh, and still maybe deep down, the belief is that nothing happens and then this is just it. which I think creates some of the anxiety and fear around it. Um, but yeah, so that's kind of the spiel about it. Um, yeah, I don't know.
Well, great. Thanks, Zach. And I think, first of all, I'll let everybody know that the phone number that you can still call will be listed in our description of the show. So I'm expecting Zach to get lots of calls after this show about what we think happens when we die. And I'll also put a link to his podcast. And so let me ask you, Zach, and then this is open for everyone to just bring up your questions and thoughts and everything that you have for Zach, or just to share with the group like we always do. But having been through this, and I just want to say I've been listening to his podcast, and they are fantastic. He's had some really well-spoken interviewees, and it's definitely worth going back and listening to all of them. So I've really
Thank you.
enjoyed it. But Zach, going through the project like you have, has that changed? You said you're thinking maybe of becoming like a little bit more involved with spirituality or something. How has that changed how you feel about death now?
I think, I think I'm definitely moving away from this idea of that nothing happens. And I might have even mentioned it. So the last couple episodes that I've done, so the ones that have been posted this year, I've done the interview, and then the following week, I've done kind of just an episode on my own, kind of talking about what I took from the interview. And I might have even mentioned it in the most recent kind of bonus episode, is that I'm maybe moved the needle a little bit away from, nothing happens, but I don't know what I've moved it towards. And so it's just nothing kind of in a different way. Um, but I do feel like, um, I don't know. I just think in general with just stuff that's going on in my life, there is some magic to life and there's a magic to universe. And I think, the science that we have now is not necessarily, foolproof. And, the science we had 2000 years ago, people were convinced that's how the world worked. So I am coming around to it. I just don't know where I'm coming around to yet. Uh,
Okay, so well, thanks, Zach. Okay, go ahead, Jules.
Zach, I have a question. Have you at all listened to anybody's stories of their NDEs?
so I haven't listened to any, but the her name was Sarah. I think actually she was the most recent interview, so that came out about 2 weeks ago. She recommended a book called After. I don't remember the author, but it was
Mm,
essentially he studied NDEs for many, many, many years. And I really liked it because it was kind of a scientific and maybe skeptical approach to it.
hmm
Um, and so I really enjoyed that. And he really, well, maybe it can be explained by, the medicine, because a lot of people, when they have these experiences, it's, severe trauma and they're given medicine. And it was like, actually, when I kind of look at the statistics, people who took medicine, or had medicine in their system were less likely to have an NDE. And so we kind of really
hmm
broke it down by like, well, maybe it could be explained by this or this. And pretty much every time it came back to, yeah, it can't really be explained by these things. Um, so yeah, I haven't listened to any. I should. I've been,
Yeah.
I don't know, not necessarily, I don't want to say skeptical. I think, and he even says it in the book, and I don't have the quote off the top of my head, but it's something like it almost feels a little bit like folklore or like something that extends from religion. Um, and not that like I discredit it or anything like that. I just am, um, I don't know. I think I'm in some ways it almost feels like this is what happens. Um, and I think I'm more trying to keep my mind open. And this is sounding absolutely terrible. I feel like I'm explaining myself wrong, um, but yeah, I think after reading the book, I'm much more interested in, talking to more people and learning more about NDEs for sure.
Yeah. Well, little by little, you take in different theories or people's experiences or whatever. It's good that you're investigating. you
I'm
know.
trying to.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's huge, the fact that you are investigating. So Cecilia, jump right in and let share what
Hi,
you got.
Zach. How are you?
Hi. I'm like trying to figure
Hi,
out where you were on the screen.
I'm here in the multicolors. So, yes, hi. So,
Hi.
what a fun topic. I mean, I can
Yeah.
imagine this would go well if you're like playing the devil's advocate. This is not possible, blah, 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 blah. However, you can't really truly believe nothing happens. You can't really truly believe that. That's what I feel because there's so much around. Look at when you go to sleep, do you dream ever?
Sometimes. Not all
Okay,
the
where do
time,
you think those
but
things come from? Have you ever had a situation where you feel somebody's looking at you and you turn around and there's somebody looking at you? Where'd you get that from? Who was
totally.
that? You are living with infinity every moment of every day. What do you think is beyond this? This is a shell. We are mostly spirit, and this little physical thing we're using right now is like a hangnail of a hangnail. It's like so tiny compared to who we truly are. We are eternal. And I have had an experience which I've shared with this group already, but I know we are eternal and we will never die. And so death is the illusion. We are living a dream right now. When we go to sleep, that's when we go back to spirit. That's when we go back to our fullness, our infinityness. So I love the topic. If you're playing from the devil's advocate, but you can't truly believe there's nothing out there. There's so much out there. My goodness gracious, live in a world with dreams and possibilities, and that's what that is. There's so much. Give it to me. Come on. Bring it.
I think I don't necessarily want to play the devil's advocate, but I think, just explaining where I'm coming from and it was Sarah who called it the dirt believers. So I guess I'm a dirt believer at this point. Um,
Are you really? Are you
I would
really?
say the needle's moving for sure. My dad is a staunch dirt believer. Um,
Hmm.
but I think,
Have you ever had a pet?
yeah,
What kind of pet?
a couple dogs.
And do you ever communicate with them? Do you ever talk to them? And do they ever talk to you back, basically? Do they listen? Do you have a communication? What's that
Yeah.
about?
I mean,
Yeah, you're
my
talking dog or they're
insanity.
talking human. What's going on there? There's a spirit connection that's happening that is beyond the physical. Have you ever looked at that something and go, oh my God, that is so beautiful. And it seems like it's radiating.
Yeah.
That's spirit. That's beyond the physical. There is so much evidence that we are more than these physical dirt bags. Okay, I'm going to be quiet. You go
No,
on.
no, it's good. I do think that's something that, in my investigation, if that's what we're going to call it, like energy is definitely something that's coming up.
Yeah.
And energy is just something that we don't scientifically understand.
Hmm.
Um, but I think a lot of, my nothingness or dirt believing is just, from more of like an analytical standpoint. And I think
It's fun
that's
to get
kind
into
of
those
how I
waters.
was raised. But I think in talking to people and just, yeah, kind of diving more into meditation and more spiritual things, I am opening up um,
Well, there you go.
to the belief. I just don't know what I believe in yet. But I think
And
that's
that's
also the fun
okay.
part of it is I want to create my own cool idea of what happens when we die. That's
You
different
do.
than from
Guess
anybody
what? You get to
else's.
do that.
I want to
You
cherry
get to
pick.
create every moment of everything you live. And there's no such thing as dying, so it's going to be there too.
Right. Okay.
Okay,
And
I'll be
Chelsea has
quiet.
her
I'm
hand
off.
up. Chelsea, go ahead.
Um,
I don't
so
mean to,
Zach,
we don't want to badger him though. I mean,
You can.
I
I'm
just
totally
want to
okay.
fine.
ask, I just,
Okay.
I just, I just want to ask him a few questions.
Yeah.
So, so you've had the experience of waking up from sleeping.
Yep.
Okay.
I don't know where
Have
you
you
went.
ever,
There you
have you
are.
had the experience of you're doing something in one room and then all of a sudden you're in the other room grabbing something like a cup of coffee or you, you were there, but then you're somewhere else? Have you ever had that experience?
Maybe. I don't know. I can't, possibly, probably.
Or like or like maybe you're outside on a walk and 1 second you're looking at a tree and then you notice a blade of grass. Have you ever like
Yeah.
like a change of perception of what? Yeah. I um I think I think I think it might be something so I think dying might be so small and insignificant that it's just a different, okay, I see the sunset. Oh, look, the clouds in front of that sunset. I think it could be something for me. I think it could be something so uneventful and tiny and small and just I think I don't know, that's the point I wanted to make. It may not be a big transformation tunnel, I think it could be something so small. And I
Natural.
was kind of thinking about this earlier today, and I think another way to view it for me is this right now that I see is a fractal, and there's many of them. And maybe dying is a bringing together of all the fractals,
Oh, I
which is
like
kind of
that,
a,
Chels. Yeah. And I just
yeah,
want to
yeah.
clarify what you were saying as far as when you say that dying might be just kind of one small, insignificant act, you're talking about for the person who's actually making the transition, not for everybody else left behind, because for everyone left behind, it's a huge thing because we are kind of in that fractal space. But for the person who's doing the transition, yeah, for them, it's just like, whoop, they're off. And then, okay, thanks. I just wanted to clarify that. Okay, go ahead, Jules.
Um, yeah, I had a question about, you said that you were that you had a lot of fear around dying, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing I wanted to say was, I think of it as transitioning. So it's like you don't really die, you transition, you get rid of the body, and meaning a lot of what Cecilia said. You're infinite, and you're now no longer in that body. That body's just sort of a case. But what I was going to ask you is, what is it that you're afraid of? When you did that, there's nothing there. Is that what your fear is?
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, I think that's part of the thing is, and I talk about it a lot on the podcast, is I think in the end we all have to believe in something. And, I think that helps make that easier. But if what you believe is nothing, um, that's scary. But I think it was also in one of Alan Watts's books that I read that it was kind of talking about, if we can't understand infinity, how can we possibly understand nothingness? Um, and then I think the other thing that's kind of coming to mind, the guy Don who had ALS, he's Baha'i, and one of the things that he mentioned was when his wife was pregnant and kind of pushing on, the baby was kicking and kind of pushing on the stomach, pressing back, and the baby has no idea that that's happening. Um, and so he was talking about that this, in kind of the Baha'i faith, is like the womb of the
Hi.
spiritual world. And so, there's something going on in the next layer, the next level. I'm probably describing this very poorly, but that we're just not aware of, but that's where we get to move on to. Is kind of the next, this is the womb of another,
Uh,
I don't exactly know the right word, world or dimension, whatever it is. But that was something that really resonated and stood out to me. Like I really love that kind of metaphor, and thinking that, even if we are here, in that sense, it's, we're learning things that then, as part of, we're growing in a way that's for the next step in the process.
I understood that.
That's great.
It's probably completely wrong, if you actually look at Baha'i faith, but that's kind of what I took
I've
from
never
it.
heard of that though. I like that visual when I think about that. It's just
Yeah.
you're going, it's like you're going to be a different embryo,
Yeah.
you know,
Mhm.
and develop from there.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah,
I like
like
that.
peeling off the layers almost.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks. And thanks, Jules, for that. And Yolanda, go ahead. Unmute. I'll put your hand down.
Well, Zach, I think it's great what you're doing
Thank you.
because it's very, very important. Because I feel the greatest event we have in this lifetime is when we die. And we have the ability, when we're born, we don't have any control. But when we die, we at least can prepare the way we want to die. Or so I really admire that you're doing this search for yourself and helping to other people to spur on, you know, prepare your death. Some
Yeah.
some people even say write your own obituary, you know, because it's going to happen. So why not create what you want? So
Yeah.
so
Thank you. And I think that's, I would say, you know, I'm new to all of you, but like this group, this is weird, right? In the sense of we're talking about death. We're not, I don't want to say we're like, but we're not normal, I would say, in the sense, because a lot of people don't want to talk about it.
Right.
A lot of people want to avoid it. And so I think that's part of the project for me too, and I think that's kind of going to be the little change in the interviews moving forward is I want my anxiety and fears around it to be more forefront in the conversations and the interviews because I know there's other people, there's a lot of people. And even when I talk to friends of mine, they're like, why do you want to talk about death? Um, a lot of people want to shy away from it. So,
so
Well, yeah,
there's a lot of beautiful movies out there, true stories of people who had a near death experience in it. It's real. So maybe
yeah.
you could search some of these out.
Yeah, I'll check it out. Thank
So
you.
all the best.
Thank you.
great. Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Yolanda. And Doreen, go ahead.
Yeah, Zach, I love that you're doing this too. I think it's awesome.
Thank you.
And I totally feel you because we've all been on this journey and it can start at any age. I've never been afraid of death. My fear was always discomfort, terrified of discomfort. But what I wanted to say was I heard something really brilliant, and not a lot of people articulate it this way. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Matt Kahn, but
Sounds familiar.
he really shifted my perception when he said something to the effect of he goes, I try to die as many times as possible throughout any given day or night because death is where the healing is,
Yeah.
and death is where the non-judgment is, and non-judgment's where the healing is. So there's there's a whole little world just in that concept for you to swim around. There
Totally.
certainly was for me, and it shifts the way you receive that word death. It's like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, I do that billions of times every
Yeah.
day,
Happens all
certainly
the
on a
time.
cellular level, our
Yeah.
bodies do, which is sort of a cool thing to dial into. But yeah, just throwing that out there for you. But yeah, awesome, love to hear more.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's something that's kind of come up in my meditation practice is like even a breath is a death in a sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that idea, Doreen, and that's something to definitely carry with us. So, okay, Jules, you have another comment you want to share? You're muted. Still
I
muted.
don't usually talk so much, but I couldn't get started now. Um, Actually, I just wanted to share an experience that I have just had that has to do with dying. And that is my best friend who passed away on the 20th of January. And we talked all the time, and we talked about death all the time, about her dying. And her thought was she wasn't afraid of dying, but Doreen, it was what you said. She was afraid of how that she wasn't going to feel good, that she was going to be in pain, that she was going to be upset, all those things. And, but it was quite an experience for me because I was on this journey with her because we spoke so often, and she was just so open about it. And what you were saying about, people don't want to talk about it. They don't know how to talk about it. They're uncomfortable. And that goes for the person that's dying and the person on their family or friends. And it's so, for me, it was such a, it was so wonderful to be able to speak openly about it and not feel, like I'm going to say the wrong thing, or, she was going to get upset. I mean, we laughed and, it was really beautiful. Of course, when she's gone, like, Barbara said, it was wonderful for her. She went peacefully, but I was really upset. So, you know, that's what I wanted to share.
And we can do a whole nother week topic on connecting with her now that she's gone, because
I would love to. Oh
there
my
are ways you
God.
could do that. Yeah. Mary, go ahead.
Yeah, just one last thing. Zach shared that he had read After, which is by Bruce Grayson.
Thank
And
you.
he is a professor at the University of Virginia Department of Perceptual Studies. And they devote their entire work to perception, life, death, reincarnation, and they do it scientifically. And it's a very good resource, lots of tapes on YouTube. And I can't recommend them highly enough for people who really want to take a non-emotional look at what this means.
Oh, thanks, Mary. Yeah. Yeah, I started this journey by reading Raymond Moody's book, Life After Life, and that was in the 80s. And he interviewed a lot of people. He was some sort of physician. But yeah, there is a lot of resources for you out there, Zach. So,
I was gonna say, I think that book's even referenced in After
mhm,
at some
yeah,
point.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
my death reading list is growing by the day.
Oh, great. Okay, good. Okay. Good. Well, thanks everybody for joining us today. This time certainly went by very quickly, and we'll be back next week with another topic. So thanks again. Leave some comments if you'd like, and if you have, and then I will definitely put Zach's contact information in the chat or in the YouTube description, so you can all give him a call and let him know what you think happens after you die. Thanks, everybody. See you
Thank
next
you.
week.